What's going on, YouTube? We begin part 2 of our Sanqui Johto series with Meganium. If we take a look at its stats, they're very similar to Venusaur. It has 100 defense and special for Gen 1 purposes. Very good, and with 80 speed, we can outspeed most things. And if we look at the TMs that it can learn for Gen 1 purposes, we get access to moves like Sword Stance, Body Slam, although we learn that by level up, Earthquake, and Reflect. Some of the moves we get by level up are Reflect, which I just mentioned, Light Screen, Body Slam, and Magical Leaf. Not too bad. With a better stat total overall, I feel like Meganium will post a better time than Venusaur, but perhaps not Blastoise. And Meganium actually received the least amount of votes when I asked you guys who you thought would win. And Meganium does encounter some early problems. And the first is this mandatory bug catcher. This Weedle actually almost takes us out because Poison Sting does so much, but after 2 Poison Stings, it just uses String Shot for the rest of the battle, and Razor Leaf is able to get the job done. From here, we can go to Pewter City and take on Brock. We're running on minimum battles, just like with Venusaur, and yeah, Brock is no challenge at all. Razor Leaf one-shots the Geodude, and we already know it's going to one-shot Onix as well, even though Onix does outspeed, and we can go ahead, skip past Mount Moon, and pick it up at Misty, who, just like Brock, same old song and dance. I don't heal before this battle, and even though Staryu outspeeds, it just went for a first turn recover, and Razor Leaf one-shots it. Starmie does crit with Swift, but Razor Leaf one-shots it as well. And we can learn Reflect, which I'm going to do because I feel like it's going to come in handy for the Rival 2 battle next. He opens with Pidgeotto, and Pidgeotto is going to open the battle with 2 quick attacks while I set up Reflect. My tackle isn't doing much to it, so I decide to use Razor Leaf, and that does a lot more damage. So another Razor Leaf finishes it off. Next up is Abra. Abra can't attack, and Razor Leaf doesn't quite one-shot it, but we can take it out on the next turn. Next up is Rattata, Razor Leaf, and one-shot. And last is Squirtle, and we know that Razor Leaf will one-shot it. Pretty easy. So Nugget Bridge does pose some troubles. I do have to go back to the Pokemon Center and heal a few times from getting poisoned by the Nidorans, but I thought that this last in front of Bill's house would give me the most trouble, because I'm pretty sure Oddishes know Acid in the Sanqui ROMs, and Pidgey's Gust is a flying move, but she goes down easy. We can go ahead, head to Bill's and get the SSN ticket, and head to the SSN. We're going to skip Body Slam because we've been going on minimum battles, and I want to see how long Meganium can keep it up. So let's go ahead and take on Rival 3, and it's not like we would need Body Slam for him anyway. Pidgeotto is the lead. I set up Reflect, and it goes for Whirlwind. Razor Leaf is doing over half, so we like to see that, and a second Razor Leaf can knock it out. Raticate is next, and Razor Leaf should and does eradicate it in one hit. Next is Kadabra. Razor Leaf almost one-shots it, but we get a retroactive potion and can knock it out the next turn. And last is Wartortle, who is going to get absolutely obliterated by Razor Leaf. And with that out of the way, we can just go ahead and move on to Lieutenant Surge, who, yeah, this also isn't a challenge for Meganium. I didn't heal before this battle as well, and Razor Leaf is able to one-shot both Voltorb and Pikachu. Raichu, X-Speed, we go for Razor Leaf. It does about half. Did more than I expected, but we knock it out on the next turn. And now Meganium has run into the first wall of the run, which is the Wrapping Lass. You see, Oddish knows Acid, which does big damage because we're weak to poison. But it can also put us to sleep and paralyze us, and then the Bellsprouts can follow up with Wrap. This fight did take me a few attempts, but I did get one attempt where I crit my tackle on the first Oddish, and it does big damage, and the luck was just there with me the rest of the battle. Oddish does use Sleep Powder and hit an Acid, but we take it out quickly, and we take out the Bellsprouts quickly to where they don't even use Wrap. They don't even get a status condition out on us. It was lovely. And really, that was all it was. We can move on from this, and let's pick it up after Rock Tunnel. And exiting Rock Tunnel, we're at a very great game time. 1 hour, 8 minutes. Extremely good. Meganium's making great time. And always after Rock Tunnel, we have to decide where to go next. Do we want to take on Rival 4? Do we want to head to Celadon? What do we want to do? And for this playthrough, I decided to head to Celadon. I want to get some shopping out of the way. We can't learn Rock Slide like Feraligatr can, but we can go to the game corner and take on Giovanni easily. But the task is actually getting to Giovanni. You see, I actually had to pick up the Hyper Potion within the game corner because I kept getting poisoned by things, and the grunts outside of Giovanni are no pushover. The Ekans in particular has acid and can knock you out with it easy. But it's this rocket right here who is some big trouble. Not only can Ekans do big damage, but it's the final Pokemon, his Arbok, that gave me trouble. Acid would consistently one-shot me. And you saw me save after beating the first rocket, and that's because I did have an attempt where I lost and I reset, and I was back at Rock Tunnel, and I was pretty pissed about that. So, of course, this attempt, we get pretty lucky. Ekans doesn't do much damage to us, and Sandshrew, well, it's Sandshrew, it can't do anything. But Arbok cooperates. It doesn't use Acid, it goes for Crunch instead, which is a Dark-type move and a special move in this gen, and since we have 100 special and Arbok's special is trash from what I know, it's smooth sailing. And with the rockets out of the way, we can go ahead and take on Giovanni next. And Giovanni, yeah, he's much easier than his rocket grunts. Because Onyx and Rhyhorn are weak to Razor Leaf, they go down pretty quickly. But the real worry here is Kangaskhan, because I'm poisoned and only have 38 HP left. I go for Razor Leaf, it does about half, it misses Mega Punch, we don't quite KO it with Razor Leaf, and it goes for Tail Whip, we get the win. And now we can move on to the Pokemon Tower to face Rival 4. Which, this rival battle is pretty easy as we've seen in all the other solo runs. Pidgeotto's the lead. I set up Reflect because I want to have my defense boosted. It went for a Whirlwind and Tackle, and Razor Leaf's able to knock it out in 2 shots. Growlithe, I'm going to go for Razor Leaf. That does more than I expected. Ember's pretty weak. We knock it out the next turn. And here, we level and we have the opportunity to learn Petal Dance, which it's only 70 base power in Gen 1, not like 120 in today's Pokemon games. Razor Leaf is almost enough to take out Execute, thankfully it is Poison Powder. Against Kadabra, Razor Leaf, crit one-shot. Well, it auto-crits, and of course, it'll auto-crit and one-shot the Wartortle. So, just like with the Game Corner Rocket Grunts, we have some trouble with the Grunts up top. The Zubats know both Leech Life and Wing Attack, and Golbat does too. When they use Swift, it's pretty easy, but Wing Attack and Leech Life, those do big damage, and I did have to reset here a few times. And there was one time where I actually did reset, and it brought me all the way back to the Rival 4 battle, which I had to do again. Granted, it was easy, but it's still frustrating when you lose progress and you have to backtrack. It really sucks. In this battle, though, against Golbat, I get really lucky, even though it confuses me, and I do get through with the tackle, but I do hit myself a few times. When it uses Bite, I have 1 HP left, and I'm able to take it out. Thank God. From there, we can make our way to Silphco, and you know, before going to Rival 5, I'm gonna make my way to pick up TM03 Swords Dance, which Meganium can learn. And then we're gonna take on Rival 5. Pidgeot is the lead. I set up a Reflect as it starts to set up Agility. It then starts going for Quick Attack while I'm setting up Swords Dance, because Tackle's going to be my best bet against it. After 2 Quick Attacks crit me and I'm left with 26 HP, Tackle's still not quite enough to one-shot it, but it goes for Whirlwind and we take it out. Growlithe is next. I'm hoping Tackle is enough to one-shot it, and it is. Execute is after that. Tackle doesn't quite one-shot it, but Retroactive Potion, we take it out the next turn. Next is Alakazam, which does outspeed us with Kinesis, but we get through, hit with Tackle. All that's left is Blastoise, and Razor Leaf will one-shot it, and we're able to move on to Giovanni. And believe it or not, I lost to Giovanni. In fact, I lost to him a few times. I think the last time I lost to Silphco Giovanni, maybe the Sneasel run, but I know for sure the Magneton run. One of the reasons being is because I came in with 27 health, because the Rocket before this battle, and Rival 5. I get poisoned right away, and yeah, that's enough to knock me out. So, we backtrack to heal, we come back at full health, and I set up a Reflect because Nidorino's normally a physical attacker, and Poison Sting crits and poisons me on its very first hit. So that Reflect really was nothing. After 2 Swords Dance, I just start going for Tackle because I need to try to knock this thing out. I don't want to take too much damage from poison. Razor Leaf is able to do half to Kangaskhan. It hits me with Dizzy Punch, that doesn't do too much. It barely hangs on, and we have 24 HP left. Thankfully, Rhyhorn goes down in one shot to Razor Leaf, but now we've got Nidoqueen, and I should have just went for Razor Leaf. I went for a Tackle, it goes for Poison Sting, and that's going to be all she wrote, after we come oh so close to knocking it out. And I thought long and hard about stopping the minimum battles attempt to just train up on some of the Rocket Grunts since they leave when to beat Giovanni, but I decided to try one more time before I do that. And this time I open up right on the offensive. After missing my first Razor Leaf, I hit my next 2, but once again, Nidorino follows the same suit as the last few battles and poisons me. That's really annoying. Thankfully against Kangaskhan, Razor Leaf gets a pretty good roll. That looks like it did more than half, but Mega Punch does some pretty big damage there. We knock it out. Thankfully Rhyhorn, it'll be one shot with Razor Leaf. Rhyhorn just sucks. And last is Nidoqueen. I go for Razor Leaf right away, and had I done that in the last battle, I probably would have won. Poison Sting came close to knocking me out, but we finally beat Giovanni, and the prize that we can finally claim, we can get the Carbos, we can get the rare candy, but most importantly, TM26 Earthquake. Now let's save our game and see if we can beat Sabrina in under 2 hours. Which, now that we have Earthquake on our moveset, combining it with Swords Dance, there's really no challenge here. I set up one Swords Dance, it still outspeeds me and hits me with Psybeam, but now Earthquake is just going to go on a wrecking streak. We one-shot Kadabra, Mr. Mime, it's nice to see Venomoth get one-shot because I was worried about Signal Beam, and Alakazam, even though it outspeeds and hits me with Psywave that does pretty big damage there, we knock it out with one Earthquake. Now let's go ahead and backtrack and take on Erica. I didn't forget about her, but I needed some moves that would do more damage than just Tackle, and Swords Dance and Earthquake give me just that. I set up one Swords Dance, probably should have set up at least 2. Victory Bell hit me with a weak Razor Leaf, and now we just begin the onslaught. Even though Tangela withstands an Earthquake, which kind of surprises me, it hits me with Bind. That's really annoying. Once the attack is over though, our second Earthquake will take it out. We level up here, and we have the ability to learn Light Screen now, which I go ahead and teach over Reflect because we have Blaine coming up, and I also think Light Screen will come in handy for the league. Anyway, you saw me beat Erica though. We're on our way to Cycling Road, going to Fuchsia City to take on the Ninja Master himself, Koga. And just like with Erica, now that we have Swords Dance and Earthquake, it's pretty easy. I set up 2 Swords Dance, but Coughing uses a Haze to eliminate it. Sludge does big damage, so I just set up one more Swords Dance, and then I try my luck. Earthquake does one-shot Coughing number 1 and Muck. It should one-shot Coughing number 2 here since it did the first one, and it does. But how will it do against Wheezing? Moment of truth, we knock it out. Alright, once Koga's out of the way, we can head to the Safari Zone to get the remaining HMs of the run. One of them being Surf, which we need, so that we can surf south of Pallet Town to head to Cinnabar Island to take on the Quizmaster himself, Blaine. And I'm really glad I have Light Screen now, but I really don't think this battle's going to give Meganium as much trouble as it did Venusaur. Well, because of Swords Dance and Earthquake. I set up a Light Screen, and then I begin to set up Swords Dance. Flamethrower still does big damage. At that point, I decide, let's start going for Earthquakes. We one-shot the Growlithe. We're gonna one-shot Ponyta here. Will we outspeed Rapidash? We do, and Earthquake is able to take it out in one shot. But Arcanine is last, it's the scariest, but we outspeed it and we one-shot it. And all that we have left is Giovanni, which 3 of his Pokemon are weak to Razor Leaf, and the other 2 are weak to Earthquake. So I set up one Swords Dance, and then I just begin my one-shot onslaught. The first 2 go down to Razor Leaf. The next two being Nidoking and Nidoqueen go down to Earthquake. Rhydon goes down to an Earthquake as well. Let's move on to the Rival 6 battle. And this is the quickest Rival 6 battle you'll ever see, and where the true pain of this run comes in. After I set up 2 Swords Dance, Pidgeot crits and one-shots me with Wing Attack. Unbelievable. But the easy fix for this is to just use some rare candies for the battle. I have 8, but I only need to use 2. That gets me to level 46, which is when we learn Body Slam. And I kind of wish I picked it up earlier in the game. Body Slam does around a quarter, while Wing Attack does half my health. I use another Body Slam and it heals with Roost, and I begin to set up some Swords Dance. Body Slam does over half, Pidgeot heals up the damage again, and I'm just hoping to get a lucky crit. Wing Attack almost knocks me out, but we knock out the Pidgeot, and from here, it's smooth sailing. Razor Leaf can one-shot Rhyhorn, Earthquake, it'll one-shot Growlithe. Next is Execute, and Earthquake, even though it resists it, it misses Poison Powder, so we take it out. Earthquake one-shots the Alakazam, and last is Blastoise, which we know Razor Leaf will one-shot it. So yeah, that fight was kind of annoying. And we're at 2 hours 39 minutes outside of Lorelei's chamber. We're not going to be beating Feraligatr's time, but perhaps we beat Blastoise. Let's see how Meganium does at its attempt at the league. Dugong's the lead, Razor Leaf one-shots it. Thank God, because I didn't want to see Signal Beam or any Ice-type attacks. We one-shot the Cloyster. And against Slowbro, I decide to set up some Swords Dance to prepare for Jinx and Lapras. It just spams Amnesia though, which once we go for Razor Leaf, the auto crit will ignore all those buffs. Against Jinx, it has paper thin defense, so Earthquake doesn't one-shot it because of the crit, but retroactive Super Potion, we knock it out the next turn. And against Lapras, a Swords Dance and Earthquake combo is not enough for this thing to withstand it. And with Lorelei out of the way, we can just move on to Bruno. We know how this goes. We're a grass Pokemon. 2 of his Pokemon are weak to Razor Leaf. They all have bad special. Razor Leaf one-shots Onix number 1, and against Hitmonchan, Razor Leaf does not one-shot it. That's kind of a surprise. I decide to set up some Swords Dance and go for Earthquake afterwards, which takes it out. Hitmonlee, it has very bad defense, so I expect Earthquake to take it out, and it does. Onix number 2 is out, Razor Leaf one-shots it, and against Machamp, how much will Earthquake do? The answer? It crits. But it just goes for Fissure. We're faster, so it can't hit us. Bruno, easy as always. And next is Agatha, who I thought would be no problem for Meganium, because, well, she wasn't really a problem for Venusaur, and we have Earthquake, which can hit all of her Pokemon except one. But that one is the biggest problem, being Golbat, because Golbat in the Sanqui ROMs has Air Slash, a move that has a high crit ratio, and with Golbat's base speed, Air Slash will crit every time. As you see here, it crits, does over half my health, and a second Air Slash knocks me out. Which, hey, that's no big deal, because we make it back to Agatha on our next attempt, and I decide I'm going to set up 2 Swords Dance on the first Gengar to prepare for Golbat. Even though I do get hit with a crit Shadow Punch, Earthquake one-shots Gengar. Out comes Golbat. Body Slam doesn't quite knock it out, but we get a retroactive Super Potion to take it down. Next is Haunter, and Earthquake will one-shot it, and that's pretty much going to be the same story with her remaining 2 Pokemon. Arbok is one-shot with Earthquake, who I want to do a solo run with one of these days. Gengar number 2 outspeeds me, and we knock it with Earthquake. Agatha, done. But next is Lance, and let me tell you, Lance gave me problems. I use my remaining rare candies except for one and heal up, and before this first battle, I had no idea how it would go, but, well, you'll just have to see the battle and find out. He opens with Gyarados, and I want to use Swords Dance because I need to buff up my attack. Dragon Rage is not a big deal. Leer, I want to see that. Body Slam, doesn't knock it out, we get a Hyper Potion. Okay, better roll. No, but we paralyze it. Dragon Rage, now I'm at like half health. Don't want to see that. But we've got quite the attack boost now. So Earthquake will knock out Dragon number 1 with ease, and it'll do the same to Dragon number 2. Unless we crit, which then retroactive Hyper Potion, and we can just knock it out this turn. Alright, Sanqui Aerodactyl. It has Iron Head. Razor Leaf doesn't quite one-shot it, we get another Hyper Potion. Come on, Razor Leaf. Still no one-shot. Takedown does a lot of damage, and we have 40 HP for Dragonite, so if it has Dragon Rage, we lose. Well, we don't knock it out, and it has Wing Attack. And like with Arcanine, I lost to Lance over and over and over again. And the problem wasn't making it to Lance. I could make it to Lance very easy, and I'm just going to have some of the losses play in the background while I talk about it. The problem was having enough HP by the time I got to Dragonite to take a Wing Attack. Meganium can't learn Mega Drain, so I had no way to heal back any damage. And I even went back to Celadon to buy another Reflect TM since we can learn that, to try and soften the damage from Dragonite and even Aerodactyl. But even then, there were times where that wasn't enough. I would lose on Aerodactyl. And I just got really frustrated. I even thought about going back to train in Victory Road, but let's see an attempt that finally goes my way. I've changed up my moveset for this battle. I've deleted Razor Leaf Reflect, which I set up turn 1 because, well, Razor Leaf has really no use now. Gyarados hits me with a Hyper Beam as I'm setting up. That's good. I've got 3 Swords Dance up. Leer, perfect. Body Slam, how much does that do? We knock it out. Awesome. We've got Dragonair number 1 next. It can't resist Earthquake, so I'm just going to go for the stronger move of that and Body Slam and knock out Dragonair number 1 and Dragonair number 2. Alright, Razor Leaf was useful against Aerodactyl. How much does Body Slam do? Quite a bit. We paralyze it. It goes for Agility. It now outspeeds and hits me with Iron Head. That doesn't do too much, and we knock it out. Alright, Dragonite. Body Slam, how much does it do? Almost, we paralyze it. Hyper Potion, can we get a better roll here? Come on, we do. We've finally beaten Lance. And let me tell you, I was so relieved. But that relief is going to come to a quick and screeching halt. Remember how trolly Pidgeot was in the Rival 6 battle? Well, it's a lot worse now. It doesn't have Wing Attack anymore, but it has Sky Attack now, which is the strongest flying move in the game, power-wise. I set up a Swords Dance, and Pidgeot begins to glow for Sky Attack. I need to knock this thing out now. I go for Body Slam. It doesn't knock it out because of the crit, and Sky Attack takes me from 182 HP to 0 HP. And just like with Lance, there were attempts where I made it back to the champion, only to lose. Hell, I had attempts that would end at Lance. And Pidgeot was the biggest obstacle on the champion's team. The few times that I could make it by Pidgeot, I wouldn't have enough HP to withstand the onslaught from either Alakazam, Arcanine, hell, even Exeggutor. I even wanted to break the rules at one point and save between the members. Alright, music change time. That means that we have a winning attempt coming, right? Well, let's just watch and find out. Like usual, I set up Swords Dance and Pidgeot mirror moves it. At this point I go for Reflect and I get hit with a boosted Wing Attack. And then from there, I also get hit with a Swords Dance boosted Body Slam because it mirror moves it. 58 HP left, let's go ahead and knock this out. Not a lot of HP for the 5 remaining Pokemon. Thankfully, Alakazam is the frailest defensively. Crit didn't matter, we knock it out. Against Rhydon, this is where Mega Drain would really come in handy, but I have Earthquake to take care of it. 3 down. Arcanine is next, and if this thing had anything, you know, like Flamethrower or Fire Blast, I'd be worried, but Earthquake just one-shots it. But we have Exeggutor, who can withstand Earthquake. I decide to set up another Swords Dance, and it proceeds to hit me with a 5-turn barrage. Thankfully, it only does 3 HP per hit, so that's not too bad. Body Slam can't take it out, but we do paralyze it, and it hits me with a 3-turn barrage. I decide to be ballsy and set up one more Swords Dance, and it hits me with Egg Bomb that comes close but doesn't knock me out. Blastoise is left, and with 3 Swords Dance, it can't withstand the power of Earthquake. And we have finally done it. And while Meganium beat the game on minimum battles, I think I would have given it some extra battles against some optional trainers for hopefully an easier time with Lance and the champion. But who knows what level that would have been at. Speaking of levels, we finished the game at level 60, final time of 2 hours 55 minutes. While we do finish the game faster than Venusaur and tie Blastoise time, with how this thing struggled against the League and the champion, I can't put it in the S tier. I'm gonna put it in the A tier, which I've also bumped Victory Bell up to the A tier, And Meganium's gonna go above Kingler and below another Pokemon who will come later in due time. Anyways, thank you for the continued support on the channel. We've got Typhlosion up next to see if he can possibly beat Meganium or Feraligatr's time. I don't think it will, but who knows. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.